Imagine scrolling through your favorite social media feed, unaware that every like, comment, and notification is subtly triggering chemical reactions in your brain that change the way you think and feel. With every swipe, your brain releases tiny bursts of dopamine, creating a reward loop that makes checking notifications feel almost impossible to resist, like a digital form of instant gratification. Social media isn't just a harmless pastime. It rewires neural pathways, conditioning your mind to seek constant stimulation while distracting it from deeper, more meaningful cognitive processes. Even short bursts of scrolling can increase anxiety levels, reduce attention span, and create patterns that mimic addictive behaviors typically associated with gambling or compulsive activities. Studies reveal that the brain responds to likes and shares in the same regions activated when experiencing tangible rewards, creating an illusion of social validation that feels deeply satisfying. Each notification triggers a small thrill, a chemical signal telling your brain that your presence online is acknowledged, reinforcing the habit without conscious awareness of the long-term effects. Over time, this constant stimulation changes how your brain evaluates reward, making everyday offline activities feel dull and uninteresting in comparison to the instant feedback of online interactions. Social media also hijacks attention, fragmenting focus into micro-moments, leaving your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and self-control, struggling to maintain sustained concentration. Even passive scrolling affects the brain differently than reading a book or engaging in real-life conversation because it prioritizes quick, superficial engagement over reflective, meaningful thinking. Dopamine spikes from notifications may feel good temporarily, but repeated exposure rewires the brain's reward system, creating cycles of craving and withdrawal similar to substance dependency. Teens and young adults are especially vulnerable, as their brains are still developing, and social validation online can significantly shape self-esteem and identity formation. The fear of missing out, or FOMO, isn't just a phrase. It's a neurological response that heightens stress levels whenever users perceive themselves as excluded from online interactions. Social comparison is another powerful factor, activating regions of the brain associated with envy, self-evaluation, and emotional regulation, often leading to feelings of inadequacy or dissatisfaction. Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms are engineered to maximize engagement, using algorithms that show content designed to prolong user attention and exploit the brain's natural reward mechanisms. Even brief exposure to curated images of friends or influencers triggers neural responses related to social evaluation, which can increase self-criticism or reinforce unrealistic expectations. Notifications act like tiny alarms, splitting focus, creating multitasking tendencies, and increasing cognitive load, which reduces efficiency and impairs problem-solving abilities in everyday life. Many people do not realize that social media engagement subtly reshapes memory processes, prioritizing short-term recall of viral trends while leaving deep, long-term memory formation underdeveloped. Your brain becomes conditioned to expect rapid feedback, causing impatience when waiting for slower processes such as completing a task, learning, or having real-world conversations. This constant stimulation affects emotional regulation, increasing impulsivity and making it harder to manage frustration or delayed gratification without the immediate reinforcement of online feedback. Social media's impact on the brain is not uniform. Personality traits, usage patterns, and age all influence the intensity and type of neural changes that occur. Individuals prone to anxiety or depression are more likely to experience heightened emotional reactions to online interactions, amplifying negative self-perception and stress responses. The visual design of social platforms, filled with bright colors, scrolling patterns, and intermittent rewards, exploits attentional biases, reinforcing compulsive engagement even when users consciously attempt to limit screen time. Unlike natural rewards such as food or social interaction, social media provides endless, low-effort stimuli that trick the brain into perceiving constant novelty, keeping users hooked for prolonged periods. Brain imaging studies show increased activation in the nucleus accumbens, the reward center, during exposure to likes or comments, explaining why social media can feel addictively pleasurable. Even anticipation of receiving a notification releases dopamine, meaning the brain responds not just to outcomes, but to the expectation of reward, heightening engagement over time. Social media platforms often blur the line between reality and perceivation. Every time you see a notification, your brain's nucleus accumbens lights up, the same region activated by food, sex, or other rewarding stimuli, showing how social media hijacks natural reward pathways. Dopamine surges create a sense of pleasure, reinforcing behavior even when the content itself is trivial, like a simple like or an inconsequential comment from a friend. This chemical reward conditions the brain to seek repeated stimulation, encouraging habitual scrolling even when users consciously intend to stop after a few minutes. Over time, your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and planning, becomes less effective at regulating these compulsive urges. Multitasking between feeds, messages, and notifications further taxes working memory, decreasing the brain's ability to maintain attention and solve problems efficiently in real-life situations. Social media's design exploits the brain's natural reward learning systems, showing intermittent reinforcement that keeps users engaged much longer than anticipated, much like a slot machine in your pocket. Even when you attempt to focus on a task, anticipation of notifications increases distractibility because your brain remains conditioned to expect unpredictable digital rewards. This creates a feedback loop. Anticipation triggers dopamine. Dopamine strengthens habit, and habit reinforces the compulsive desire to check updates continuously throughout the day. Studies reveal that heavy social media users exhibit increased activity in brain regions associated with craving and desire, similar to patterns observed in substance addiction. The orbitofrontal cortex, responsible for evaluating rewards and punishments, can become hyperactive, making it harder to resist stimuli even when the consequences are clear or negative. Social validation from likes and comments creates micro-rewards, which amplify self-esteem fluctuations as your sense of worth becomes tied to external approval rather than internal satisfaction. Fear of missing out, or FOMO, triggers the amygdala, heightening vigilance towards social information, increasing anxiety, and reinforcing compulsive checking behaviors that keep you tethered to your device. Notifications act as micro-triggers, splitting attention and increasing cognitive load, which reduces your brain's ability to process information deeply or retain complex concepts. The brain becomes conditioned to prefer quick, easily digestible content, impairing patience for long-form reading, reflection, or immersive offline activities requiring sustained focus. Each scroll, swipe, or tap strengthens neural pathways linking reward and attention, making offline experiences less stimulating in comparison to constant online engagement. Social media also affects emotional regulation, as frequent exposure to curated images can amplify envy, social comparison, and negative self-perception. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for monitoring conflict and error detection, becomes more reactive, causing heightened sensitivity to perceived social slights or criticisms online. Emotional contagion occurs when repeated exposure to viral content spreads moods like happiness, outrage, or fear, altering your emotional state subconsciously without deliberate reflection. Even brief scrolling sessions can increase cortisol levels, heightening stress responses, especially when content triggers comparisons or social anxiety. Social media hijacks the default mode network, the brain's resting state system, reducing reflective thinking and promoting shallow, rapid processing of fermented information. This shift encourages superficial engagement, where your brain focuses on novelty and immediate feedback instead of deeper learning or creative thinking. Users often develop compulsive behaviors, checking feeds automatically during idle moments, driven by conditioned reward anticipation rather than conscious decision-making. The ventral tegmental area, responsible for producing dopamine, becomes overly responsive to social feedback, creating heightened craving for notifications and reinforcing compulsive usage patterns. Adolescents are particularly vulnerable as their prefrontal cortex is still developing, making impulse control weaker and susceptibility to social validation stronger. Studies show that heavy teen users have altered connectivity in brain regions associated with attention, self-regulation, and reward processing, highlighting the long-term neurological impact. Overexposure to social media can reduce gray matter density in areas responsible for attention control and decision-making, subtly impairing cognitive flexibility. Even adults experience neural adaptation, where habitual checking reduces sensitivity to real-world rewards, making everyday experiences feel less engaging. The combination of reward anticipation, intermittent reinforcement, and social comparison creates a cycle of compulsive behavior that keeps users locked into constant checking and scrolling. Over time, habitual social media use can subtly reshape neural networks, affecting attention, emotional regulation, and decision-making as the brain adapts to constant short-term digital rewards. Chronic engagement reinforces reward circuits, making offline activities feel less stimulating and reducing motivation for tasks requiring sustained effort. Prolonged exposure to social comparison triggers the amygdala, heightening sensitivity to social threats, rejection, or perceived exclusion. This heightened sensitivity can exacerbate anxiety and stress in daily life. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for impulse control and planning, can become less efficient when overloaded by rapid content consumption. Frequent notifications and rapid consumption strain self-regulation and planning abilities. Brain imaging shows structural changes in regions linked to attention and cognitive control over time. Social media also alters social cognition, shaping how individuals interpret others' intentions and emotional cues. Constant comparison with idealized images may distort self-perception and increase vulnerability to low self-esteem and body image concerns. The insula, involved in self-awareness and risk perception, becomes more reactive to social feedback online. Overuse can reduce gray matter in attention-related regions, decreasing sustained focus and working memory capacity. Emotional regulation networks are impacted, making users more reactive to stress, criticism, or unexpected feedback. The brain develops a heightened expectation for instant rewards, reducing tolerance for slower, effortful activities. This explains why reading, studying, or creative work can feel less engaging than a social media feed. Adolescents are especially susceptible as their prefrontal cortex and reward networks are still developing. Dopamine-driven reward loops contribute to compulsive checking of notifications, likes, and comments. Even passive scrolling strengthens attention networks for shallow, fast-paced content, while weakening reflection and deep learning pathways. Immediate gratification, social validation, and intermittent reinforcement prioritize short-term reward over long-term benefit. Over months or years, these adaptations can increase impulsivity, emotional reactivity, and preference for online interaction. Chronic exposure can also affect empathy by reducing sensitivity to nuanced, real-life emotions. Mirror neuron networks may receive less stimulation from online interaction, limiting emotional attunement offline. Continuous exposure to curated content can reinforce confirmation bias, narrowing perspectives through repeated reinforcement. The brain's reward system begins to prioritize social media reinforcement, shifting attention toward emotionally charged content. Compulsive checking behaviors emerge from microdopamine surges triggered by notifications, likes, and comments. Users may develop an unconscious reliance on external validation, making self-esteem dependent on digital acknowledgement. Even brief exposure to curated social content can trigger self-evaluation circuits, activating anxiety, envy, or competitive comparison. Anticipation of feedback releases dopamine, teaching the brain to crave ongoing stimulation despite negative consequences. Sleep disruption from nighttime scrolling suppresses melatonin, alters circadian rhythm, and reduces deep sleep needed for memory consolidation. Neural plasticity ensures these changes are reversible, but only if intentional strategies are applied to restore balance. Mindfulness practices, offline social engagement, and focused work can retrain attention, emotional regulation, and reward systems. Understanding social media's neurological effects is the first step toward reclaiming control, as awareness alone can reduce compulsive behaviors and begin to restore natural attention and emotional regulation. One of the most effective strategies is setting scheduled breaks, allowing the brain to recover from constant stimulation and re-engage prefrontal networks responsible for focus and decision-making. Turning off notifications prevents unnecessary dopamine spikes, reducing compulsive checking and giving the brain space to prioritize meaningful tasks rather than fragmented digital distractions. Mindfulness meditation strengthens attention control and emotional resilience, counteracting the impulsive reward-seeking behavior that social media often encourages in daily life. Conscious consumption involves choosing which platforms, content, and interactions truly add value, instead of passively scrolling through algorithmically curated feeds designed to maximize engagement. Digital detoxes, even for a few hours daily, allow the brain to reset reward circuits, improve sleep quality, and reduce stress linked to continuous online engagement. Scheduling specific times for social media rather than sporadic checking helps restore structure, reducing impulsivity and reinforcing deliberate decision-making rather than habitual behavior. Engaging in offline hobbies, reading, painting, writing, or sports stimulates natural reward pathways, providing satisfaction without relying on digital feedback or external validation. Limiting exposure to curated content minimizes social comparison, reducing activation of neural circuits associated with envy, stress, and negative self-perception. Practicing gratitude and reflective journaling strengthens emotional regulation, encouraging the brain to prioritize intrinsic satisfaction over external social approval. Sleep hygiene is critical. Avoiding screens before bed allows melatonin release, improves deep sleep, and enhances memory consolidation and cognitive performance. Exercise triggers natural dopamine release, strengthens attention networks, and enhances emotional resilience, providing healthier alternatives to digital reward loops. Cognitive exercises, like puzzles or strategy games, promote sustained attention, working memory, and prefrontal cortex engagement, counteracting fragmented focus caused by habitual scrolling. Social support offline enhances real-world emotional connection, strengthening empathy and mirror neuron activity often understimulated by passive online engagement. Limiting multitasking between devices prevents cognitive overload, allowing the brain to focus fully on one activity, improving productivity and deep thinking. Intentional notifications control, like using Do Not Disturb or muting non-essential alerts, reduces anticipation-driven dopamine spikes that reinforce compulsive behavior. Reflective social media use encourages asking, does this interaction serve me, or am I responding out of habit or FOMO? Before engaging with content, setting usage goals, such as checking feeds only twice daily, retrains the brain to tolerate delayed rewards rather than seeking constant, instant gratification. Prioritizing meaningful interactions over passive scrolling enhances activation of natural reward pathways while reducing compulsive checking behavior. Mindful scrolling includes being aware of emotions triggered by content and consciously deciding to disengage from posts that evoke stress, envy, or frustration. Time-tracking apps help users visualize screen time, revealing unconscious habits and supporting the creation of healthier digital routines. Exposure to natural environments, sunlight, and physical activity stimulates attention networks, counteracting mental fatigue caused by continuous online engagement. Practicing deep focus sessions without interruption improves prefrontal cortex function, enhancing the brain's ability to resist distractions and regulate impulses effectively. Social media literacy equips users with the knowledge of how algorithms manipulate attention, making it easier to avoid manipulative design and addictive content loops. Reflecting on goals and intentions before opening a platform reduces automatic engagement and increases conscious decision-making, strengthening self-regulatory neural circuits. Limiting notifications and alerts creates a controlled environment where the brain can respond intentionally rather than reactively to microstimuli. Replacing passive scrolling with active learning, reading articles, watching educational content, or creative tutorials stimulates prefrontal and attentional networks while providing intrinsic reward. Mindful social comparison involves evaluating content objectively, recognizing that curated posts rarely represent reality, which helps regulate emotional response and self-esteem. Practicing digital fasting periodically allows the brain to recalibrate reward sensing.
Now that you understand how social media affects your brain, the challenge is no longer awareness. It's taking deliberate steps to reclaim focus, attention, and emotional balance in daily life. Every notification, like, or comment triggers neural pathways shaped by reward anticipation. But knowing this allows you to choose whether to engage consciously or react habitually. Recognizing that compulsive scrolling is not weakness, but a neurological pattern helps reduce guilt while encouraging practical strategies to regain control over attention. Structured breaks are essential, providing your brain with time to recover from constant stimulation, rebuild attention networks, and restore emotional regulation disrupted by digital overuse. Turning off non-essential notifications reduces dopamine-driven anticipatory responses, decreasing compulsive checking and creating space for deliberate mindful engagement with content. Mindfulness meditation trains attention, strengthens prefrontal regulation, and restores balance to reward circuits hijacked by repetitive social media use. Digital detox periods, even short ones, allow your brain to reset, enhancing focus, improving sleep, and supporting healthier emotional responses to social stimuli. Prioritizing meaningful online interactions over passive consumption fosters connection without overloading reward circuits, ensuring social media becomes a tool rather than a distraction. Engaging in offline hobbies stimulates natural dopamine pathways, satisfying the brain's need for reward while promoting skill development, creativity, and long-term cognitive health. Sleep hygiene is crucial, as avoiding screens before bed restores melatonin production, supports deep sleep, and strengthens memory consolidation disrupted by late-night scrolling. Exercise promotes neurochemical balance, enhancing attention, emotional regulation, and executive function, counteracting the neurological effects of constant digital engagement. Cognitive exercises such as puzzles, strategy games, or learning new skills improve working memory, attentional control, and problem-solving, mitigating attention fragmentation caused by social media. Reflective journaling after digital use builds metacognition, allowing you to observe emotional triggers, recognize compulsive patterns, and make intentional adjustments to engagement habits. Limiting exposure to curated or emotionally charged content reduces stress, envy, and social comparison, decreasing amygdala activation while promoting emotional stability. Mindful scrolling encourages questioning why a post triggers a response, fostering self-awareness and breaking unconscious reinforcement loops that exploit attention and reward circuits. Prioritizing deliberate engagement over passive browsing strengthens prefrontal networks responsible for decision-making, self-regulation, and attention control, restoring brain balance over time. Scheduling specific social media times prevents constant disruptions, allowing the brain to anticipate stimulation intentionally rather than reactively, enhancing focus on offline tasks. Setting goals for online activity ensures content serves your purpose rather than exploiting neural reward mechanisms, giving you control over the digital experience. Social accountability, like sharing usage goals with friends, reinforces positive habits and strengthens motivation for sustained, intentional engagement. Practicing gratitude online, focusing on meaningful contributions rather than comparisons, enhances intrinsic reward pathways, reducing reliance on external validation. Exposure to offline social interactions strengthens empathy, perspective-taking, and social cognition, compensating for neural adaptations caused by habitual online use. Replacing habitual scrolling with creative or educational activities promotes cognitive engagement, while reducing dopamine-driven compulsive behaviors. Mindful breathing or short meditation sessions between social media usage restores attentional focus, decreases stress, and rebalances neural circuits affected by compulsive engagement. Deep reflection on digital habits strengthens executive function, allowing intentional decision-making and preventing unconscious reinforcement of addictive loops. Awareness of algorithmic manipulation empowers users to avoid content designed to capture attention at the expense of mental health and cognitive clarity. Structuring offline routines with focus and intention retrains attention networks, gradually reducing dependence on constant digital stimulation. Conscious engagement supports cognitive flexibility, emotional resilience, and reward balance, enabling the brain to recover from habitual overuse and maintain long-term health. Understanding the brain's plasticity reassures you that intentional practice, mindful usage, and structured offline engagement can reverse negative adaptations caused by social media.